Harmon named his starter for the Tulsa game, and some players and coaches in the NFL have a lot to prove this season. All this and more on College Crossfire.
I guess we'll get into it. Always enthusiastic, unbelievable, hard-nosed.
All right, let me explain why Aaron Judge is getting it. You can boo me all you want.
I knew Texas was going to win, and then one of the Texas team was going to lose.
Hammy. I don't like the Hammy.
Oh, you don't like this guy?
All right, I'm done. This is all chaos.
Welcome to the first College Crossfire of the semester. I'm your new host, Jonathan Polasek, and I've traded in my fishing shirt for a suit this year. Looks like tonight's show is going to be a good one. We've got a completely veteran group on tonight, so let's start with the man himself, Eric Goodman. How you doing, Eric?
Jonathan, I cannot tell you, man. We've been doing this a long time, man.
We have.
I cannot believe you have taken the fishing shirt off, but you're looking good, man.
Thank you. I gotta change it up every once in a while now. Steve, how you doing? We got Steve Helwick here.
I'm doing pretty well, hoping to reel in a victory tonight.
Reel in a victory, I like it. You're not wearing a suit. That's a new change.
I just decided it was pretty hot outside. It felt like about 120 today, so.
And last but not least, Turner Barnes. Turner, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back, ready to talk some sports.
Well, good. I'm glad to have you all on here tonight, so let's just dive right on in. Texas football took on Maryland this past weekend on the road, and we're looking to seek a little revenge after last year's season opening loss. Well, things didn't go as planned. Maryland, dealing with some issues leading up to this game, came in and punched Texas in the mouth and won 34-29. Texas looked primed to battle for a Big 12 crown this year, but after another season opening loss, what's the biggest takeaway for this team after this weekend? Eric?
Yeah, well, it's not good. I mean, nothing out of that game was good, despite what Tom Herman might have you believe if you heard his press conferences. And I got to start with Tom Herman because, you know, here's a guy who walked into the Texas job, and even before Charlie Strong was fired, everybody was already assuming that Tom Herman was the coach of Texas, or at least was going to be. And 2 years in, you give any coach a pass his first year for the most part. You want to see development. We got a little bit of improvement. But then they take the field against Maryland, go down 24-7 early on in that game. And I don't think Tom Herman understands his players in any kind of more increased way than he did last year. And he was trying to tell the fans that the reason they came out slow was because something along the lines of they wanted it too badly, they were trying too hard. I'm sorry, isn't that exactly what you coach players to do? To want it more than the opponent, to play hard through every whistle, and now that's the reason that Texas didn't win the game? I'm sorry, I'm not buying that spin. And Tom Herman, you're not looking like the genius that we all might have thought you were at Houston.
I mean, honestly, Tom Herman, he looked outcoached, completely outcoached in that game.
And the other team didn't have a coach.
Yeah, Matt Canada is the interim head coach for Maryland, and they just came out and just took it right to Texas. Steve, what say you?
Losing to Maryland, a team coming off a 4-8 season, that's never a good thing, but I think a lot of these mistakes are fixable. I think the biggest problem Texas had was they were down 24-7. You cannot afford to go down 24-7 and have your offense have to go back and win the game. And Texas's defense looked pretty good at the end. They made a lot of crucial stops, and they went on a 22-10 run at the end of the game, but you can't have your offense on the field trailing at the end of the game because they've shown time and time again that they're very mistake prone in situations like that. So you need to play from ahead and have the defense make stops early, and that's one thing they didn't do. But I think there's reason for optimism, though. I don't think Texas will lose to an opponent of this low of a caliber again this season.
Yeah, Texas, they did have their moments, especially like you said at the end on defense, but that first quarter was just brutal for that defense, and the offense was just sluggish all around, all game long. Turner, what about you?
Yeah, I'm optimistic as well. Nobody can deny the fact that they woke up late on Saturday. They took a quarter and a half to wake up. But once they did wake up, you see they went on a 22-0 run in the middle of the second quarter all the way until the rain delay, really. And that all stemmed from the offensive line play. At the beginning of the game, they were terrible. They gave up a sack on 3rd and 11, and Maryland was rushing 2 guys. That's not okay in any way ever. But after they got it together, you see them rattle off 22 points in a row, and then the rain delay happened, and that kind of slowed them down. They went back to their old ways. But if the offensive line is good and can protect Sam Ehlinger, and they can fire off the ball and get a good running game going, I think this Texas team is fine. Like we all talked about, the defense played well almost the whole game. And I think there's a lot of room for optimism. That's my biggest takeaway, is the offensive line play has to be more consistent.
Yeah, that offensive line, they did play well. I mean, you had the new addition of Calvin Anderson. And the running game, for the most part, in that first half, you had Keontae Ingram. He looked pretty good. That line was paving some big holes for him. I mean, Texas, yeah, you had that rain delay that really stopped all that momentum. Turner, you're getting the points because they did look good going into that rain delay. So Turner with the very first point of the semester. But after the loss to Maryland, many people have given up on the season. Tom Herman shares what he saw during and after the game.
Although the outcome is similar to last year's opener, this one feels much different. And the reason we played so poorly, in my opinion, is actually a good reason, because of how close this team has become.
So let's do a little buy or sell. Do you believe that this team is better than last year's team? Let's start with Steve.
I'm going to say buy, which means I think that they finished better than 7-6 still. It was just a very rough start to the season, but you have a more experienced offense. Both quarterbacks gaining more experience. The running back depth looks more versatile this year with the additions of Trey Watson and Keontae Ingram. And I really like what they have going at wide receiver with Lil Jordan Humphrey and Colin Johnson, and even Gerard Hurd. I think it's one of the best wide receiving units in the Big 12. The defense is going to take a step back when you lose talent like Malik Jefferson, Holton Hill, Deshaun Elliott, but they still impressed me enough on Saturday, especially with the run stopping and Hager and Omenihu, where they still look like a very formidable unit. So I think that this Texas team overall is going to be better this year, and one more reason why I think it is subtraction from the rest of the Big 12. Teams like Oklahoma State and Kansas State losing key guys like Jesse Ertz, Mason Rudolph, and so on, and that's just an epidemic that struck the entire conference this offseason.
Yeah, you can honestly say the Big 12 looks a little bit weaker this year because of that quarterback exodus. And Texas really does have a shot to battle for the Big 12 this year, but we'll see when the end of the season comes. Turner, what about you? Are you buying or selling?
I'm also going to buy. I think the defense is really good. You have Todd Orlando still there. You got the swarming speed and athleticism of this defense that you don't see on a lot of defenses in college football. The only thing I will say about the defense, though, is Maryland got outside way too often, any and every time they wanted to. I'm going to throw this little fun stat in there. Brecken Hager had one solo tackle. Lil Jordan Humphrey also had one solo tackle. Hager has to do better at setting the edge and keeping the offenses from getting outside. That being said, I still think they're going to be a better team. The offense is definitely going to be better. I think Colin Johnson is going to get more targets than he did last year. Lil Jordan Humphrey, he's a diverse threat. And Texas has three pretty good running backs with Trey Watson, Keontae Ingram, and Daniel Young. And Kyle Porter. Just throw him in there on the goal line every once in a while. I think, like I said in my last thing, if the offensive line is as good as everybody thinks they're going to be, then I think Texas is definitely better than last year.
Well, I mean, Texas, they just got killed on that jet sweep, but for the most part, defense was all right. Yeah. But, I mean, still, they couldn't stop it like all game long, and that's what led to the loss. What do you say? What do you say?
I'll be honest. Got there eventually.
Got there.
I gotta sell on this. That, potentially I could see if you take the depth chart and you compare it 2017 versus 2018, you go line by line. Sure, maybe you have slightly more guys that you'd favor on this year's team, but big picture, let's see, what is this Texas team actually going to be this season? And what was last year's? So last year's was a team that would play up to its competition and would give close games to the likes of USC and Oklahoma, teams that were like in and around the playoff picture. But they're also a team that would play down to the competition like Maryland and like some of the other teams that gave them trouble last year. And I see the same exact thing happening this year. And they might, with any luck on their side, because they had some bad luck last year, just some, late mistakes and some things didn't go their way. So they may, with a bit more luck, win a bit more of those close games, but I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to blow out bad teams, nor do I think that they're a team that's going to get over that hump and beat good teams. So you put those in front of me, and it looks like the same as last year, so I'm selling that they're better this year.
Eric, I'm going to have to give you the point. This team really looks the same as last year, just based on the talent level that left last year. You had Malik Jefferson, Connor Williams, and Holton Hill. I mean, you replace them with guys like Calvin Anderson, Trey Watson, but overall this team still looks relatively the same in terms of overall talent level. So Eric's getting the point here.
I appreciate it. In exchange for forgetting my name.
It took me a second. But let's move on to quarterback play. Tom Herman has named Sam Ehlinger the starter against Tulsa. And while Sam has had his moments over the course of his young career, such as nearly knocking off USC in the Coliseum last year, he has struggled with accuracy and timely turnovers. Is sticking with Ehlinger the right move for Texas going forward? Let's start with Turner.
We have to remember, Sam Ehlinger has only started 7 games in his career. He's still in the middle of his first season, if you think about it like that. I think it is the right move. I think I've harped on the offensive line, both of these questions so far. Whenever the offensive line gave him time, you see him make great plays. The touchdown at the end of the half, he looked off the safety, threw a perfect pass to Colin Johnson. Later in the third quarter, he throws a dime right over Colin Johnson's shoulder to get them in first and goal range. But if the offensive line is not going to be good, Shane Buechele, he doesn't have an internal clock. He never knows when to throw the ball away. He takes too many sacks. Sam Ehlinger is good at getting away from pressure and just making plays like the 4th down play that kept the game alive for a few plays. But I think Sam Ehlinger is the way to go.
No, I agree. I mean, that offensive line is key for Texas. It's just a matter of can they keep whoever's under center, can they keep them upright and healthy? And so watching how the offensive line plays and just creates enough time for either Sam or Shane to throw is really going to be important. Eric, what about you?
Well, if you go off the sample size that we have with Saturday's game, to me it looked like the exact same Sam Ehlinger as last season. I didn't see any significant improvements that he made that we were told that he was making. So I was disappointed, and I've been a big Sam Ehlinger fan since the day he started taking snaps under center for Texas. But he's down to his final strike. One more of these games where maybe he's part of the reason why they are in a game, but if he's any part of the reason why they lose it and can't find a way to win, then I've seen enough from Sam Ehlinger, to be perfectly honest, and I've also seen enough from Shane Buechele. I don't think he's the answer either. The only alternative would be one of these 2 freshmen that have come in. Cam Rising looks like the one that I've read some journalists. I've seen some great things at practice, and if you have something there, now you can have 4 games where you're in and you're not burning a red shirt. So I hope to see Cam Rising, at least see some flashes with him. But yeah, it's Sam for now, but not for long.
I agree. I mean, Sam Ehlinger, he's just had too many turnovers at the end of games that cost Texas too many wins, it seemed like, this past weekend and last year. And so maybe it's time to bring in Shane Buechele, maybe Cam Rising. I don't know. Steve, what about you?
Picture you have 2 dice. The first one can only roll a 1 or a 6. The second one can roll a 3 or a 4. Both of those expected values of rolling the die will be 3.5. That's the die that rolls 1 and 6 is Sam Ehlinger. The one that rolls a 3 and 4 is Shane Buechele. Sam Ehlinger is your high-risk, high-reward guy. You saw he has an improved deep ball. He makes those big plays. He can do a lot with his feet. He did a lot of that on Saturday. He showed that he is a great playmaker, especially with that throw to Duvernay early in the game. But Shane Buechele is a reliable. He plays smart. He's not as turnover prone late in games as we've seen Sam Ehlinger do at least 4 times before. Shane Buechele last year in the Texas Bowl used screen passes to get down on his first possession. He looked really good on that. He's a less risky quarterback. If Alabama can do 2 quarterbacks, I think Texas should try it for a little while. It's all situational. Which quarterback do you want in the situation, the high risk, high reward, or the more moderate one?
I mean, you could play 2 quarterbacks. It has worked at some other schools. Steve, you're getting the point. Shane Buechele, he is the more accurate of the 2 quarterbacks. I mean, Sam Ehlinger just missed some wide open throws, especially at the end of the Maryland game. So you're talking about if you had a quarterback who could make those throws, maybe Texas wins. So, Steve, you're getting the point. When we return, we'll be talking more college football plus some NFL. Stick around. Welcome back to College Crossfire. Let's take a look at the scoreboard. Eric's got 1, Steve's got 1, and Turner's got 1. So it's still anybody's game right now, but let's talk a little bit more of college football. Yeah. So we got week 1 in the books, and while 1 week doesn't make a season, it can be a sign of things to come. In fact, 4 ranked teams such as Texas lost to unranked teams or teams ranked lower than them. And while a couple of other highly ranked teams such as Penn State dealt with some major scares before pulling out the win. So which team surprised or disappointed you most this first week? Let's start with Eric.
Got to keep it right here in the Big 12, and it's not what we as Texas students and fans wanted to see from our arch rival, but Oklahoma with Kyler Murray as their new quarterback looked every bit as potent of an offense and as a team as the Baker Mayfield-led Oklahoma team of last year that made the national championship game. And Kyler Murray specifically looked, to me, against a Florida Atlantic team coached by Lane Kiffin, which is not, a better team, many would say, than, a lot of these other teams that big programs were playing. They demolished Florida Atlantic, and Kyler Murray, with his feet, with his arm, did everything that you want to see. It looks like early on, it's him and Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama that are like on another level in your Heisman race if we were going to start at day one. And so Oklahoma, maybe they're going that next step and going to win the national championship this year.
Yeah, OU looks just as strong as they ever have been in the Big 12. Steve, what about you?
Give me a lei, give me some pineapple. I'm taking a boat across the Pacific Ocean. I'm going the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. They are back for the first time since 2010. That was the last year which they had a winning record. Nick Rolovich's team finally looks good. And unlike most teams, they actually have 2 data points already because they played in Week 0 and in Week 1. Dispatching 2 quality opponents, Colorado State, who's usually a good contender in the Mountain West, then Navy, who knocks off Notre Dame's and Power 5 opponents all the time and is almost always a good team. And their offense looks incredible. Cole McDonald, he looks like if he weren't in the group of 5, he'd be a Heisman candidate. 9 touchdown passes, 846 passing yards. He's the second coming of Colt Brennan. Can I get some love for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors? I think they get, my bold prediction, 11 wins this regular season.
Oh, that's real bold. That's real bold.
Look at their schedule. You'll understand.
Well, let's see if Hawaii can make it to 11 wins. Let's go with Turner, see what you have to say.
I was most impressed with the Virginia Tech Hokies. Their defense was insane. Florida State got inside the red zone and inside the 6-yard line 3 times and 2 times inside the 6-yard line, came away with only 3 points total on the game. Virginia Tech had 5 turnovers, and the only other teams that were held under 6 point or like 3 points or less in college football were all FCS teams and Western Kentucky, and they were all held against Power 5 schools. And so this Virginia Tech team did it against the 19th ranked Florida State in a crappy ACC in a terrible division in the ACC. It looks like if they go undefeated and they beat Clemson in the ACC championship game, you might see them in the playoff.
That's asking for a lot, but I'm going to go with the team nobody's talking about, Steve Helwick, Hawaii. He's getting the point there. But let's move on to the professional side of football. NFL Week 1 starts tomorrow with the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles taking on the Falcons. But there are already several players and coaches looking to prove themselves. Cleveland coach Hugh Jackson has won 1 game in 2 seasons with the Browns, while a player such as Jameis Winston comes into the season suspended for a few games and just hasn't consistently won with the Bucs. But overall, which player or coach has the most to prove this season? Let's start with Steve.
I'll tell you what, man. Going from one of the best jobs, as all of us sports broadcasters know, hosting Monday Night Football is an incredible job, being in the booth there. Then taking that job, coaching a Raiders team that struggled, didn't fulfill expectations last year. And it looks like the Raiders team is getting worse. I do not know what John Gruden's doing with this team. He has so much to prove this season. He gets rid of franchise player, probably a future Hall of Famer in Khalil Mack for a trade that Madden doesn't even think is acceptable. He trades Martavis Bryant for a 3rd-round pick and then cuts him. And he trades for Martavis Bryant and then cuts him. And then he gets rid of all his backup quarterbacks and trades a pick for A.J. McCarron. I'll tell you what, man, I don't know what John Gruden's doing here, but it doesn't look like something that John Gruden would praise on Monday Night Football.
Now, he's definitely made some questionable decisions, but let's see how they pan out. Turner, what about you?
I was going to say John Gruden, but because of the moves he's made, there are no expectations for the Raiders anymore at all. It's been terrible. So I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins. He's the only player in NFL history to have a fully guaranteed contract. He goes to a Vikings team that is poised to make a Super Bowl run. They were 1 game away last year, and the only missing piece they had was their quarterback. They had a career backup as their quarterback led them to the NFC Championship game. And so the Vikings went and got him, gave him a fully guaranteed contract, and said, you're the one that's going to put us in the Super Bowl. And that's a lot of expectations for a guy who threw 27 touchdowns and 13 interceptions last year. He's not necessarily an elite quarterback with some really high expectations.
That's right. He does have a lot to prove coming over from Washington. Let's see how he pans out with Minnesota. Eric, what about you?
I love the guys that will run their mouths and then back it up. And that is exactly what Jalen Ramsey is going to have to do this year down in Jacksonville. Basically, he spent the whole summer calling every quarterback outside of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers an overrated scrub. Well, guess what, Jalen? Show us that you are right. You know, he's probably not going to even be challenged that much because every quarterback is going to be trying to throw away from him because he is one of the best cornerbacks in the league. But hopefully, this kind of trash talk is going to make the quarterbacks want to throw his way, and he'll, show what's he made of. Is he going to have 8 interceptions this season, or is he going to get beat for, 90-yard touchdowns? And he's got to prove that this season because he's been running his mouth.
Now, all those top wide receivers are going to want to go after him this year. Eric's getting the point. Jalen Ramsey, let's see what he can do for an encore this year, going up with a huge target on his back. So let's move on from the beginning of the NFL to the end of the MLB. It's the final month of the regular season for Major League Baseball, and some teams are looking towards the postseason already. While the AL may be pretty much set in terms of who's going to be in the playoffs, the NL still has some sorting out to do. There are currently 5 teams in the NL that have a legitimate shot at sneaking into the wild card game, and the NL West is all sorts of crazy right now. But who in your mind would be a good dark horse pick to make the playoffs in either the AL or the NL? Let's start with Turner.
All right, this one's going to be a long shot, but I did some math yesterday. So the Pittsburgh Pirates are 9 games back with 23 games left to go. 6 of their games left are against the Brewers, who are in the wild card number 1 spot. 3 of them are against the Cardinals, who are in the wild card number 2 spot. In July, they went on an 11-game win streak, 5 of which were a sweep of the Brewers. And the rest of their schedule is a cakewalk. They have Cincinnati for 3 games, Miami for 3 games, Kansas City for 3 games, and so the math works out. They got a chance. It's not over for them yet.
Relatively easy schedule, but Steve doesn't seem to agree a whole lot. But we'll get to Steve in a minute. Eric, what do you say?
I like the Philadelphia Phillies to just overtake the Atlanta Braves in the division. I don't think the Braves are experienced enough to hold this lead. They haven't been tested. The Phillies don't really have much more experience, but they do have a Cy Young candidate in Aaron Nola. I think he gets them that little bit of the way through on these division games to come in September.
Yeah, the Phillies definitely do have a lot of quality pitching. Steve, what about you?
I'm going with the NL reigning champs. The Dodgers won the pennant last year. They return a lot of good experience. Guys like Bellinger, and they have Justin Turner returning. And they had the big Manny Machado trade, and then they just got another veteran, a World Series MVP in David Freese. They have a lot of good talent, and they have the Cardinals and Diamondbacks upcoming on their schedule. So it's time for them to show what they're made of. And one more thing they have is Clayton Kershaw, and you need an elite pitcher to go through the MLB playoffs and win the crown.
Right, it looks like the Dodgers have kind of sleptwalked through the season for the most part. But I'm going to go with Eric again. The Phillies, they've looked good, pretty good all year long. And they're young, they're talented, and let's see if they can make that final push into the playoffs. So Eric's got 3 points, and things are about to heat up when we return. Rapid Fire is next. Welcome back to College Crossfire. It's time for Rapid Fire, but let's take a look at the scoreboard first. We got Eric with 3, Steve with 2, and Turner with 1. Now, you guys are all veterans here. You know what Rapid Fire is about, but for everybody at home, let's just tell them that Rapid Fire is each question is worth 2 points each, and anyone can jump in at any time. So really, it's still anyone's game. So let's take a look at the first question. The SEC Network is debuting a new show called True South. It takes a look at food, culture, and sports in the South. Well, UT has the Longhorn Network. So if you could create a show for the Longhorn Network, what kind of show would you want to see?
I'm going to bring some more Animal Planet into this. I'm going to have Bevo battles. So you have Bevo, and each week you bring on a guest live mascot, like Reveille could be week 1, and then maybe Mike the Tiger or Ralphie the Buffalo come on, and you see how they interact, whether they fight or whether they get along. It's sort of like Planet Earth, but with Bevo.
Might be a little much for the Longhorn Network, but it's still an interesting concept.
You know who's a pretty interesting and very fashionable man is one Chris Del Conte, our new athletic director. And I would love to have a half an hour a week of Chris Del Conte walking us through his closet and showing us the premier burnt orange stylings that you can go to the UT Co-op and purchase and wear to your next tailgate or wherever Chris Del Conte likes to wear his ties and shoes.
So he's just going to show us the University Co-op then, basically.
Well, no, he's got to show us his own closet because yeah, and
right.
he's a stylish guy, so I feel like he could be, pretty
He's very sharp. Looks very sharp. Turner.
I want to see a show where Eric Goodman goes around to different Texas athletes and tries to beat them at their own sport. So, for instance, he goes to a Texas football, like he gets Gary Johnson, and he has to try and juke out Gary Johnson, or he has to try and beat one of the swimmers in the race, or Andrew Jones in like a dunk contest or something. I think I'd like to see that.
Definitely a show I would like to see. Turner, you're getting the 2 points right there. So Turner's got 3, Eric 3, Steve with 2. Still anyone's game. Moving on to motorsports. IndyCar is coming to the Circuit of the Americas here in Austin. It's a unique and exciting event for the city every year. So my question is, what other events would you like to see here in Austin? Anything you want.
Do you know the sport slam ball?
I've heard of it.
Slam ball, it's basketball with trampolines. Anything can happen at the rim. There's always chaos. You're always jumping on trampolines. It's really fun to watch. Tons of dunks. There's shots. Just so much action. And I think it would be fun to install some slam ball courts here, have some competitions, and people could even play at them.
I like it. You can see people doing flips and everything like that. So it's an interesting concept for sure.
Real answer, rarely goes well on this show, but it's what's come to mind as I'm watching hours upon hours of the U.S. Open. How about one year we just move the U.S. Open and push it to Austin? And then I can see, 2 of the greatest athletes, 3 of the greatest athletes, when you talk about Serena Williams, Roger Federer, and Rafael Nadal, none of which I've seen in person, all of which I would pay lots of money to watch do their thing. And so let's just do it like around, closer to here, not up in New York.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Turner, what about you?
I want to get all the people in Austin and have a eating contest, but not with hot dogs, with Torchy's tacos.
Ooh.
To see who can eat the most amount of Torchy's tacos in a short amount of time.
Overrated tacos.
Agreed.
I agree, but there's the first one. They're like size. They're a good size for eating contests.
Now, I'm going to go with Steve and slam ball because I like to see people doing flips and dunks and all that sort of stuff. It just makes for a very entertaining sport for everybody to come out and watch. So Steve's getting the 2 points right there. Last rapid fire. So, barring a major upset this weekend, Alabama is about to spend its 106th week atop the AP poll in its history. For 1 point each, can you name the rest of the programs in the top 5 with weeks spent at number 1 in the AP poll?
Ohio State.
Ohio State.
USC.
Michigan.
Wait,
Notre Dame.
I don't understand the question. It's okay.
Ohio
Basically,
State.
I don't like your chances.
I don't either.
Ohio State, USC, Notre Dame.
Ohio State, USC, Notre Dame. I got my list right here. 1 second.
Going to the phones.
Going to the phone. Ohio
Nebraska.
State, USC, no Nebraska. So
I
Steve's
still-
got 2.
Texas saying that's a joke.
Wait,
That's a
wait,
joke.
okay.
Wait.
Oklahoma.
Was Notre Dame one?
Notre Dame was 1.
Okay, I said Ohio
Okay,
State,
you got 3,
USC,
Steve.
and Notre Dame. And he
Ohio-
said Michigan, and he said Nebraska.
You're still missing one school.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma right there. That is they're actually in third place. Now, just for a little fun, Steve's got the win already, but just for a little fun, can you name where Texas is ranked all time?
7th.
No.
Oh,
I don't think they've spent too much time at number 1, honestly, because they
They're in the
won-
top 10.
They were?
Okay.
10th.
No.
9th.
Yes.
They're 9th.
They're 9th.
They just scream 9th.
They spent about 46 weeks in first place in the AP poll over the course of its history.
In like previous decades.
Have
Right?
they
Yeah,
spent-
and the early Mac Brown era.
Okay.
Have
And
they
then
spent- Wait, have they spent the most preseason weeks at number 23 also?
they might as well. They might as well. I mean, honestly, yeah. But honestly, that's all the time that we have for tonight. Congratulations to our winner, Steve Helwick. So make sure to tune in on Mondays at 9:30 for College Press Box to catch up on the latest sports news on the 40 Acres. And tune in with us next Wednesday at 9 o'clock for more College Crossfire. Don't forget to follow at TSTV Sports on social media. And for all the panelists and everyone in studio at Master Control, I'm Jonathan Polasek. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
Woo!